The unexpected alliance. The Zephiran High Council chamber fell into stunned silence. Grand Admiral Valek stared at the holographic display, his 7 eyes blinking in rapid succession as he processed the devastating reports. The Void Eaters had consumed another 3 star systems in the past solar cycle. 17 billion Zephirans gone. Not killed, but something far worse, absorbed into the hive consciousness of the all-consuming entity that had emerged from the dark space between galaxies. Our outer defense line has collapsed, Fleet Commander Terrace announced, her voice wavering despite her military discipline. The crystalline barriers couldn't withstand the quantum disruption fields. The Void Eaters adapted too quickly. For 10,000 years, the Zephiran Concordat had dominated this sector of the galaxy. Their crystalline technology, powered by the harmonic resonance of neutron stars, had been unmatched. Their 300-year lifespans had allowed them to perfect the arts of war and diplomacy across generations. They had been untouchable. Until now. "We have exhausted every option," said Elder Morai, the Council's most respected scientist. "Our computations indicate total civilization collapse within 63 days, unless we find a new defensive approach." Admiral Valex's lower appendages twitched nervously. What about the species in the outer spiral? The ones with the water-covered world? The chamber erupted in dismissive chirps. Elder Calyx, keeper of first contact protocols, raised her appendage for silence. "You mean the humans? We catalogued their world 80 cycles ago. Pre-FTL primitives. They had barely established a foothold on their neighboring planet. Hardly worth the quantum bandwidth to communicate with them. But they survived," Valix insisted. "They evolved on a death world. Their gravity is 1.5 times our homeworld. Their atmosphere contains corrosive oxygen. Their world experiences regular extinction-level events. And yet they thrive. What could primitives possibly offer against the Void Eaters?" asked Terrace scornfully. Velix activated another holographic display. "Our long-range sensors detected this 2 cycles ago." The hologram showed a small fleet of ships destroying a Void Eater scout vessel using tactics the Zephirans had never considered. Instead of meeting the enemy head-on with energy weapons, as the Zephirans would have done, the ships deployed some kind of gravity distortion that collapsed the scout from within. "These ships came from Earth," Valix said quietly. "The humans are no longer pre-FTL." The council chamber exploded into chaotic debate. Elder Morai studied the footage with growing fascination. How did they advance so quickly? And why didn't our monitoring stations detect this? Fleet Commander Terrace's expression hardened. "Because we weren't looking. We dismissed them as irrelevant." Admiral Valix straightened his ceremonial armor. "I propose we send an emergency delegation to Earth. Now." "They have no reason to help us," Elder Calyx objected. "We ignored them for decades." "Then we'd better hope," Valix replied, "that humans are more generous than we were." Captain Maya Rodriguez of the United Earth Defense Force stood on the bridge of the UEDS Defiance, watching the Zephiran delegation approach through the viewscreen. Their crystalline ship sparkled against the backdrop of Saturn's rings, a deliberately chosen rendezvous point. Far enough from Earth to be secure, close enough to demonstrate humanity's reach within their solar system. "They're hailing us, Captain," Lieutenant Park announced from the communications station. On screen, Rodriguez ordered, straightening her uniform. 8 years at the helm of humanity's most advanced warship had taught her to expect the unexpected, but a desperate plea from the same aliens who had once scanned Earth and departed without so much as a greeting. That was new. The viewscreen flickered to life, revealing Grand Admiral Valix. His chitinous exoskeleton gleamed under the lights of his ship, and his multiple eyes blinked in what Rodriguez recognized as anxiety from her xenobiology briefings. "Captain Rodriguez," Valix began, his translator converting his chirps and clicks into smooth English. "On behalf of the Zephiran Concordat, I extend gratitude for agreeing to this meeting." "Welcome to Sol System, Admiral," Rodriguez replied with professional courtesy. "I understand your situation is urgent." More than urgent, it is existential. The Admiral's appendages trembled slightly. The entity we call the Void Eaters has consumed 12 of our core systems. Our defenses have failed. Our greatest weapons are useless. And now you're looking to us, Rodriguez stated flatly. The same primitives your scout ships dismissed 80 years ago. Valix's eyes blinked rapidly in what the captain recognized as embarrassment. Our arrogance was a miscalculation. We did not understand then what we understand now. And what's that, Admiral? That evolution on a death world creates strengths we cannot imagine. The alien hesitated. We've observed your encounter with a Void Eater scout. Your tactics were unexpected, effective. We need that perspective now. Rodriguez exchanged glances with her XO, Commander Okonkwo, whose subtle nod confirmed their pre-planned approach. Admiral Valix, I'm authorized to invite you aboard the Defiance for further discussions, but I should warn you. Earth isn't the same world your people scanned decades ago. When the Zephiran delegation materialized in the Defiance's conference room, their reaction was precisely what Rodriguez had anticipated. Shock, followed by disbelief as they absorbed the technological advancements displayed in the ship's design. This vessel's quantum architecture, Elder Morai whispered, her scientific eye stalks extended in fascination. It rivals our most advanced designs. How did you progress so rapidly? Necessity, answered Dr. Eliza Chen, Earth's leading quantum physicist, who had joined the meeting. When your scout ships departed without contact, our governments realized we weren't alone, and that the galaxy might not be friendly. It unified us in a way nothing else could have. But these advancements, Fleet Commander Terrace objected. Even with unity, the technological leap is impossible. Rodriguez interrupted with a slight smile. That's humanity's specialty. The captain activated a holographic display showing Earth's defense network, hidden shipyards beneath the Pacific Ocean, covert bases on Mars and throughout the asteroid belt, a network of quantum satellites that monitored approaching threats. While the galaxy ignored us, Rodriguez explained, we prepared, not just with technology, but with strategic thinking that comes from surviving a world that tries to kill you daily. The Zephiran's appendages twitched in collective astonishment. Admiral Valix leaned forward. Then you'll help us. That depends, Rodriguez replied. We need to understand exactly what we're facing and what you're proposing. The Admiral activated his own holographic display, showing the full horror of the Void Eaters. Not simply a destructive force, but a consciousness that absorbed all it encountered. Technology, biology, knowledge, into its expanding hive mind. We've lost 17 billion of our people, Valix said quietly. Not killed. Absorbed. Their consciousness still exists within the collective, but perverted, twisted to its purpose. Rodriguez felt a chill run down her spine. This wasn't just an invasion. It was extinction and enslavement combined. The Void Eaters will reach your system eventually, Elder Morai added. They consume all advanced life. You've merely been overlooked thus far. Commander Okonkwo, who had remained silent throughout the exchange, finally spoke. So what exactly are you proposing, Admiral? An alliance, Valix replied simply. Your innovative tactics combined with our remaining resources. And afterward, Rodriguez asked, if we survive this threat, what then? Does humanity return to being the primitives you once dismissed? The Admiral's multiple eyes blinked slowly. If we survive, Captain, the galaxy will never see humans the same way again. That I promise you. As if responding to his words, alarm suddenly blared throughout the Defiance. Lieutenant Park's voice came urgently over the comm. Captain, long-range sensors detecting quantum disturbances at the heliopause. Signature matches the Void Eater profiles the Zephirans provided. Rodriguez locked eyes with Admiral Valix. It seems, she said grimly, that your enemy has followed you here. Time to see if this alliance has any merit. The emergency they had prepared for independently was now upon them both. Humanity's hidden strength was about to be tested against the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known. Defiance against the impossible. The Void Eaters emerged from the darkness beyond Pluto like living shadows, devouring light and matter alike. Earth's quantum sensors painted a terrifying picture, not ships in any conventional sense, but amalgamations of absorbed technology and biological matter, all pulsing with malevolent purpose. 17 distinct entities, reported Lieutenant Commander Reese from the tactical station aboard the Defiance. The three largest are approximately 30 kilometers in diameter. Captain Rodriguez studied the sensor readings with growing concern. The Void Eaters were adapting before her eyes, their outer membranes already shifting to match the quantum frequencies of both human and Zephiran ships. "They're learning," Grand Admiral Valix observed, his voice tight with tension. "Every moment we observe them, they observe us back. Then we stop giving them time to learn," Rodriguez decided. She opened a channel to the 15 Earth defense vessels that had assembled near Neptune's orbit within the last hour. "All ships, this is Captain Rodriguez. Execute Protocol Hydra." Without exchanging another word, the Earth vessels split into irregular formations that seemed chaotic to the watching Zephirans. Some accelerated toward the Void Eaters, others retreated to apparently random positions. "What are they doing?" Fleet Commander Terrace asked in confusion. "There's no strategic logic to this deployment." Dr. Chen smiled grimly. "That's exactly the point." On the main view screen, the lead Earth vessels launched what appeared to be conventional missiles toward the Void Eaters. The biological machines easily absorbed the impacts, their membranes rippling slightly before stabilizing. "Your weapons failed," Terrace observed unnecessarily. "Those weren't weapons," Rodriguez replied. "They were receivers." At her command, the Defiance activated its primary quantum disruptor, a technology the Zephirans had never seen before. The beam struck the nearest missile embedded in a Void Eater's membrane. Instantly, all the missiles detonated simultaneously, creating a cascading quantum feedback loop that destabilized the creature from within. The Void Eater's coherence collapsed, its massive form disintegrating into molecular dust. "Unpredictability," Rodriguez explained to the stunned Zephirans. "Your civilization built perfect crystalline defenses, logical, symmetrical, beautiful, and completely predictable to an adaptive intelligence. Humanity learned different lessons from evolution." Admiral Valix watched in astonishment as the human fleet continued executing maneuvers that seemed random yet devastatingly effective. "What lessons?" "That survival doesn't go to the strongest," Commander Okonkwo answered, "but to the most adaptable. That chaos can be a strategy. That perfection is a weakness against an evolving threat." The remaining Void Eaters, however, were learning. They began splitting into smaller units, dispersing to minimize the effectiveness of the quantum feedback tactic. 3 Earth vessels were enveloped before they could retreat, their crews and technology absorbed into the collective. "They're adapting," Rodriguez acknowledged grimly. "Admiral Valix, now would be the time for the Zephiran fleet to contribute." The Admiral nodded and transmitted orders to his ships waiting in Saturn's orbit. The crystalline vessels surged forward, their harmonic cannons firing in perfect sequence, a beautiful, deadly symphony of energy. The Void Eaters, having already encountered and adapted to this technology, easily absorbed the attacks. "Your ships need to break formation," Dr. Chen urged. "Randomize your attack patterns." "Impossible," Fleet Commander Terrace objected. "Our weapon systems require precise harmonic alignment, too." "Then they'll fail," Rodriguez interrupted bluntly. "Adaptation requires abandoning what doesn't work." Admiral Valix made a decision that would have been unthinkable days earlier. "Commander Terrace, transfer tactical control of our fleet to the Defiance. Let the humans guide our attack patterns." Within minutes, Rodriguez's tactical team had integrated the Zephiran ships into their chaotic strategy. The crystalline vessels, now moving in unpredictable patterns, became suddenly difficult for the Void Eaters to counter. "It's working," Elder Morai whispered in astonishment as 3 more Void Eaters collapsed under the combined assault. But the victory was temporary. The largest Void Eater, having observed the destruction of its smaller kin, changed tactics entirely. Instead of attacking individual ships, it released a quantum disruption wave that spread across the battlefield. "Brace for impact," Rodriguez shouted as the wave approached. The energy surge ripped through both human and Zephiran vessels, disabling shields and weapon systems. The Defiance shuddered violently as consoles exploded across the bridge. Emergency lighting flickered on as the main power failed. "Status report," Rodriguez demanded, wiping blood from a cut above her eye. "Weapons offline. Propulsion at 20%. Communications down," reported Commander Okonkwo, his voice steady despite the chaos. 7 Earth vessels disabled. 4 destroyed. The Zephiran fleet is in worse condition, their crystalline hulls shattered under the quantum surge. Admiral Velix helped Elder Morai to her feet, her exoskeleton cracked and leaking bioluminescent fluid. "We underestimated them again. They've absorbed enough of our technology to know our weaknesses. We cannot win this battle." Rodriguez stared at the view screen, watching as the Void Eaters regrouped, preparing for a final assault that would consume both fleets. Earth itself would be next. Then she saw it, a pattern in the Void Eaters' movements. They weren't just a hive mind. They were a network. And networks had nodes. "Dr. Chen," she called, "the quantum disruption they just hit us with. Could we reverse the frequency?" The physicist's eyes widened as she grasped Rodriguez's thinking. "Yes, but we'd need a delivery mechanism at the center of their formation. Nothing would survive getting that close." Rodriguez looked at the damage reports for their remaining ships. One vessel stood out, the UEDS Prometheus, heavily damaged, but with intact propulsion and a functional quantum core. "Get me Captain Takahashi on the Prometheus," she ordered. When the captain's face appeared on the view screen, bloodied but determined, Rodriguez explained her plan. The silence that followed told her everything. "It's a one-way trip," Takahashi said finally. "I know," Rodriguez answered quietly. "But it's our only shot." Admiral Valek stepped forward. "Let my ship go instead. We've already lost so much." "Your ships can't carry our quantum technology," Rodriguez explained gently. "And you don't have our experience with chaos mathematics. This has to be us." On the screen, Captain Takahashi nodded. "We'll get it done. For Earth. For everyone." They watched in solemn silence as the Prometheus accelerated toward the center of the Void Eater formation. The damaged vessel weaved through tentacle-like projections, sustaining hit after hit, but never wavering from its course. "Now, Dr. Chen," Rodriguez ordered when the Prometheus reached the perfect position. The physicist activated the reversed quantum pulse, channeling it through the Defiance's remaining power reserves to the Prometheus. The smaller vessel glowed briefly before unleashing a cascading destruction that penetrated the very core of the Void Eater network. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, like dominoes falling, the Void Eaters began to collapse from within. Their complex networked consciousness, the very thing that made them so adaptable, became their undoing as the feedback loop multiplied exponentially through their shared neural pathways. Within minutes, the battlefield was quiet, filled only with the molecular debris of what had once been the most terrifying force in the galaxy. Admiral Valek stared at the emptiness where the Void Eaters had been. "How did you know that would work?" "We didn't," Commander Okonkwo admitted, "but we understood something fundamental about adaptive networks. They're strongest when connected," Dr. Chen explained. "But that connection is also a vulnerability. Perfect systems are perfectly vulnerable. Humanity learned long ago that imperfection, redundancy, inefficiency, the capacity for sacrifice, these are actually evolutionary advantages against certain threats." 3 days later, as repair crews worked to restore the damaged fleets, Captain Rodriguez stood with Admiral Valek in the Defiance's observation lounge, watching Earth rise over the lunar horizon. "Your Concordat, We'll need to rethink many things, Rodriguez said quietly. Everything, Valix agreed. Our understanding of strength, of intelligence, of what makes a civilization advanced. He turned his multiple eyes toward her. We dismissed you as primitives because you hadn't mastered certain technologies. We never considered that perhaps you were mastering something more important. Survival, Rodriguez said simply. It's what humans do best. The galaxy will know this now, the Admiral promised. The species that stood against the darkness when all others faltered. The alliance we begin today reshapes the power structure of the entire galactic community. Captain Rodriguez smiled slightly, looking back toward the Earth. Beautiful, deadly, and resilient, just like the species it had forged. Then let's make sure it's an alliance worth building, she said, extending her hand in the human gesture of partnership. After a moment's hesitation, Admiral Valix reached out his appendage to complete the connection between their worlds that now faced the universe together.